remember who I was. I was lost, I was blind, I was running out of time. Sin separated, the breach was far too wide. But from the far side of the chasm, you held me in your sight. So you made a way across the great divide, left behind heaven's throne
Okay, maybe we need to go over this one more time.
Do we have to?
Well, sweetie, I don't know if you're getting a good grasp of the ratios here.
Fine.
Okay, all right, step by step. Before we spend any money, what's the first thing that we do?
Give to God.
Good. And why do we do that?
Because he first loved and gave to us.
Good. Okay, great. Now the second jar here is for so many different things.
Hold on.
What?
God lives in heaven, right?
Yeah, he lives in heaven.
And heaven has streets paved with gold, right?
Streets paved with gold, sure, yes.
So why does he need my money if I don't even have a job?
Okay, all right, so good question. So basically when we give to God, we're giving to the church.
So the church gives the money to God?
No, the church keeps the money.
Oh, does God know about this?
Yes, he basically built the system, yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. See, sweetie, as you grow up, there is nothing better than giving back to God. In the Bible, it's the only place God says, test me on this. When it comes to your money, he says, test me. It's almost like he's saying, I dare you. And your mom and I, we do just that. Even when things are tough, we always give the first part of our money back to God. And then the church takes that money and does all kinds of things to make God famous, like camps and mission trips and even VBS that you love so much, and even helps out people that are in need. You can't outgive God. And when God says test him and you do it, he will come through every single time.
Okay, Dad, I get it. I do have one question, though.
Oh, okay.
Why do we need to test God if he already knows all the answers?
That's good. Let me just retrace my steps here just for a minute.
In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is asked the question, which is the greatest commandment? He answered, love God with all of your heart, and with all of your soul, and with all of your mind. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And then again, at the Last Supper, he says the same thing, but with a twist. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples. This time, Jesus replaced your neighbor with one another. This new love that Christ commands of us goes much deeper than the Old Testament commandment he was quoting in Matthew. The people we have been commanded to love has expanded beyond our neighborhoods to include, well, everyone. And this includes people who might make this commandment a bit difficult, like that confrontational coworker who just seems impossible to get along with, or your in-laws who've never treated you like a part of the family, or maybe the person you just met, who you don't even know and really need some help. You see, Jesus knew his physical time on earth was nearing an end. So in this new take on the old commandment, Jesus also made another change. The words "as yourself" became "as I have loved you." Wow, that's a tough act to follow. Christ's sacrificial life provides a clear and concrete example of real and true love. And he put this love on display on a daily basis with his disciples. He was patient with them, speaking kindly and showing great concern for their welfare. He instructed, counseled, and comforted them, prayed with them and for them. He admonished them for wrongdoing, and yet compassionately bore with their failings. And most of all, he gave his life, dying so that they and we might live. According to Jesus, this is how others will know that you are one of his followers, not because you have a shirt or a bumper sticker that says so, not because we announce it from a stage or a blog or a status update, but because they look at you, at how you live, the things you do and say, and they see Jesus. They see love.
There is an epidemic sweeping across our nation's churches. That is the shrinking population of their volunteers. Alarming, to say the least. To investigate the impact, we set up our cameras, removed all the volunteers, and followed a man we'll call Pete as he attended a local worship service without any volunteers. It started out like any other Sunday. Pete arrived 5 minutes late, as he always does. He assumed a greeter would open the door. He assumed wrong. Have you ever had church coffee that's been sitting around for a week? Well, Pete has. Deciding life was about more than just coffee, Pete finally answered the call to the mission field. But there was nobody picking up on the other end. To further complicate matters, Pete had to stoop down and get his own bulletin. He even had to hold and comfort a tiny human that he didn't understand. In fact, Pete didn't understand any of it. So, how can we as a church body keep this from happening? It seems there's a very simple fix. It takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. So won't you do it for your church? Do it for yourself.
Wait!
God bless him. Volunteer, for Pete's sake.
Where's my car? Hold on! Wait!
I don't care how late you stay out. Stay out as late as you want. You want to borrow the new car? You want to borrow my credit card? Kids today, they really have it rough. I have no idea where we are or where we're going. I mean, when I was their age, life was easy, super easy. Why haven't you gotten a tattoo yet? How come you don't have any piercings yet? Yep, we're lost. We are completely lost. Ooh, sports. Just do whatever the mechanic says to do. Vehicle maintenance is completely overrated. Look, whatever the mechanic is asking, just pay him. Pay him whatever he wants. I wish they had soap operas at night. I like that boy. You should date him. You should date him immediately. Well, what about the creepy guy with the motorcycle? He's cute. Yeah, sure. Spring break in Tahiti sounds fun. Hey, make sure you get all your video games done before you start your homework. You don't have to pass all your classes. What? You have a project due tomorrow and you've known about it for 4 weeks and you haven't started yet? Sweet! Doesn't anybody want to know if we're there yet? Remember, if you need anything between midnight and 4 a.m., please come wake me up. Hey, I'm on the phone. Could you bring the baby over and let him climb all over me? Hey, can you please turn that music up? Well, we just stopped for lunch 10 minutes ago, but yeah, let's stop again. I never have trouble with my toddler. I never have trouble with my teenagers. I never have trouble with my adult children. You know, she's right. We are ruining her life. Yes, more homework to correct. All right, whining. Yay, tantrums. Vomit. We just really need to spoil these kids more. Sorry, buddy. I don't know any good jokes at all. You're 16. You pretty much know everything now. I think 18's a great age to get married. Okay, remember, make sure you turn on all the lights before you leave the house. Hey, could you leave the front door open for a couple hours? Thanks. Whoa! Money really does grow on trees.
Good morning and happy Father's Day. This is not a typical Father's Day for us this Sunday. We had a mainline water break on the property over the weekend, and so we're not able to meet in person. Looks like most folks got the memo. We did our best to try to get it out as quickly as possible, but thank you for joining us online. Looks like we have about 28 families that are online, and people are commenting and going back and forth. It's good to see you, and thank you for commenting. Make your presence known online so that we know that you're there. This is Father's Day. We have a very special Father's Day present for all of our fathers. It's a beef stick. Since you're not here, Ryan and I will be eating the beef sticks. So we're going to be like super fathers on Father's Day today. No, you can come pick it up in the lobby next Sunday, and we'll make sure that it's there for you. Make sure that in comments, go ahead and give shout outs. Let us know that you're there. Encourage each other. Let us know if you have a favorite father or something or a dad that you'd like to call out for this Father's Day, and I think that so I think that's about it. But there are a couple prayer requests that I'd like you to consider, and we'll get into the message here this morning. First, make sure to give online. You can go to cbctexas.org/give. And from there, you'll be able to give your tithes and offerings. So we'd ask that you don't forget about that. You can do that now and take care of that. Also, two prayer requests. Pat Hall, who is one of my small group guys on Wednesday, recently had a stroke. He's in the hospital at Santa Rosa. Would you pray for him? He's recovering. He looks good. I don't know if he's watching online, but he looks good. And just keep him in prayer, especially as they move him from ICU into a regular room and begin rehab. Also pray for Jim Yount. Jim Yount begins his medication to take care of cancer Monday, so pray for Jim and make sure to lift him up tomorrow. All right, let's go ahead and start with prayer, and then we'll get into our Father's Day message. Dear Lord, first I lift up Pat and Jim to you here this morning. I pray for Pat and his quick and full recovery. I thank you that he's still alert and still mobile, Lord. I pray that you give his body healing. I pray that the doctors will be able to assess the extent of the stroke and make sure that everything is cleared up. I pray that his rehab will go very quickly. I thank you for his son, PJ, and family that are taking care of him, Lord. I pray that you'll give them the strength they need to care for their dad. I pray for Jim, Lord, that you'll be with him as he sees the doctor tomorrow and begins this treatment, Lord. I pray that it will take care of the cancer, take care of the problem, Lord, and that you'd restore him back to full health. And Lord, today is not a typical Father's Day for us, and I'm largely preaching to an empty room. I pray, Lord, that you'd help me deliver a message that would be an encouragement to our fathers, and I pray that it will be something that would honor and glorify you, for it's in your name I pray. Amen. Turning your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 1. Fathers, have you ever thought that you have pretty big shoes to fill? Maybe you have a father, a dad that you loved and respected, and now you have children of your own, and you're thinking, if I could just be half the dad my dad was, I think I would feel like a success. Or maybe you had a father who was not a very good father figure. He wasn't a very good example, and you say to yourself, Lord, I pray that I learned my lesson from my dad so that I don't repeat the same mistakes. It doesn't matter, dads and fathers, where you are. There is prone to be in your mind this idea that you have very big shoes to fill. And you can feel this heavy responsibility upon your shoulders because you are, as a Christian and as a father, the leader of your home. You're the leader of your wife. You're the leader of your children. And you're the one that is there to care for and consolidate and make them feel better. You can come on in. We have a water main break, and so, so we're streaming online, but welcome. And this, I'm not preaching this at you, of course. If it looks like I'm preaching at those of you that are in the room here, it's not you, it's them online. And so, yeah, fathers have a great amount of responsibility. And I think that dads really need some encouragement, because encouragement really for fathers and for men in general cannot really be found in our society very much. In fact, the problem today is that fatherhood is actually reduced to a lesser role. We see this represented in our society in many different ways. There's an attack on the family, there's an attack on the home, and the importance of dad is really being mitigated or decreased to a great extent. To such an extent that I think even in Christian homes, fathers are not held to the esteem that they should be, even based on scriptural principles. Now, this has become very pervasive in our society, and I want to give you a couple quotes that illustrate just where our society is heading, so you can understand how important it is to guard your family as a dad, and how important it is as a wife, as a mother, to also help your husband. Let me give you a couple of these quotes. This is from Linda Gordon. She said, "The nuclear family," she's a feminist, "must be destroyed. Whatever its ultimate meaning, the breakup of families now is our objective, revolutionary process. She said, we have to destroy the nuclear family. Now, if the word nuclear makes you think that your family is radioactive, that's not what it means. Nuclear simply means it has all the core components in and of itself to function independently. Black Lives Matter, principle number 11 says this: we are committed to disrupting the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, and especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. One other person said this: therefore, it's important for us to encourage women to leave their husbands and not to live individually with men. All of history must be rewritten in terms of oppression of women. Marriage is looked at today as an oppressive regime, a place where women are basically servants in their homes with no autonomy, with no free will, with no freedom. And you can see that the attack is on the nuclear family, but it is also an attack on fatherhood, on the men in a family. And this is something that, as our culture heads in this direction, our churches and our schools, our Christian schools, and our families have to guard ourselves against this kind of mentality, because fathers are important in the home. Let me give you a couple of illustrations of this. Fathers with daughters, for a father with a daughter, here's some of the things that a father brings to the family in terms of how they interact with their daughter. Fathers provide a feeling of security, both physical and emotional, to the home. A father shows his daughter what a good relationship with a man is in life. If a father is loving and gentle, a daughter will look for those qualities when she begins to date. This is from a Christian website. If a father is strong and valiant, she will relate closely to men of the same character. So fathers, when you think of your daughters in your home, they will go and look for a husband that is just like you. That's a pretty big, those are big shoes to fill, isn't it? Because your child, your daughter is at stake, but also her children are at stake. How about fathers and their sons and how they react, how they interact? This is again from a Christian website. It says, unlike girls who model their relationships with others based on their father's character, boys model themselves after their father's character. They want to be like their father. Boys will seek approval from their fathers from a very young age. As human beings, we grow up by imitating the behaviors of those that are around us. That's how we learn to function in a world. If a father is caring and treats his family with respect, the young boy will grow up and do much the same. When a father is absent, young boys look to other male figures to set the rules for how to behave and how to survive in this world. So fathers with sons, we have to demonstrate to our sons how they can live in this society and how to live in this world. It's important. The role of a father is important in your family, but it's also important generationally. You've heard this passage in Deuteronomy chapter number 5. It goes like this: for the Lord thy God am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Now, you've heard this passage before, and maybe some of you look at this passage and say, well, if I have a certain sin in my life, that's the same kind of sin my children are going to have. And when we think like that, we are, first off, we're excusing ourselves for the sin that we have when we blame parents. And we're also giving our children a means for escape of their own sin. Your sin and my sin weighs directly on our shoulders. And while there might be environmental influences and people that have hurt you or caused problems, it's still your problem. It's still your sin. So what is this passage talking about? Well, it's saying that fathers have such an influence in the lives of their family, in the lives of the home, in their community, that the direction that is set by a father can be felt 3 and 4 generations deep, over 100 years from the time in which that father first made that great impact. And so, fathers, it's really important that regardless of what society says and regardless of what you might feel as being not capable of being a father, it's important that you step up, that you and I step up and be the kinds of fathers that our daughters and our sons need. And so what I want to do is give you just an outline of Proverbs chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I promise this will be quick because we can't cover every single chapter, and certainly not every particular book, verse in each of those chapters. But what I want to do is maybe encourage our fathers on a couple things in a sea of ways to raise your children, a couple things that I hope will maybe resonate with you based on what Scripture says, and will give you something to go off of today and into next week so that you can be the kind of father that raises your children in the way that they should go. So you found Proverbs chapter 1. That's where we're at, Proverbs chapter number 1. So Proverbs is a book written from a father to a son. It's illustrated in several different passages. Chapter 1, verse 8 says, Hear my son, your father's instructions, and don't forsake your mother's teachings. Chapter 2, verse 1, my son, if you will receive my sayings. Chapter 3, verse 1, my son, do not forget my teaching. Chapter 4, verse 1, hear, O sons, the instruction of your father. Chapter 4, verse 10, hear, my son, and accept my sayings. Chapter 4, verse 20, my son, give attention to my words. Chapter 5, my son, give attention to my wisdom. Chapter 6, my son, my son, my son. You can see that this is an appeal from a father to a son through Proverbs. Now, what is a proverb? A proverb is simply a principle that's stated in really concise terms. It's a simple way to synthesize a very complex thought in a way that's memorable and repeatable. It's pithy. It's something that is providing some kind of an instruction or moral lesson to help somebody do the right thing. And so the whole book of Proverbs is this compilation of these concise, simple, wise statements that are written from a father to his son. Now, to start out with, I think that every father has conversations with their son and their daughter. But a lot of the conversations, men, that we have with our children can be very superficial, right? We can have conversations that are directional. Please go do this. You need to take care of that. Don't forget to do this. We can have conversations that are maybe a little bit more interactive, where we can talk, playfully joke, love on them and express those kinds of feelings to our children. But I think, men, that one of the things that fathers really struggle with is not the superficial kinds of conversations that we have, but it's actually in really teaching our sons and our daughters very deep personal truths. So we can teach our kids how to fish. I don't think we get necessarily nervous about that. We can teach them how to brush their teeth, how to comb their hair, how to mow the grass, how to cook. We're maybe good at the practical things, but when we look at the book of Proverbs, what it's telling us is that this is a father sharing very deep thoughts to his son with the belief and the hope that his son will listen to this wise teaching and will have success and live a long life. And so, how many of you have ever heard of TLDR? It's used a lot in kind of tech, /dr. It means too long, did not read. And that represents our culture, right? I don't want to read a whole book, so give me the Cliff Notes version of it. I don't want to read a whole paragraph. Can I just read the summary at the top? Or maybe you're like me, where sometimes articles are so long that you'll copy and paste them into ChatGPT and say, please summarize this article, and it spits out, what it thinks the article is all about. That's the kind of environment that we live in, right? Very quick communication, very superficial, just give me the TLDR, and then we can move on. But the fact of the matter is that as fathers, we have to take time to have deeper conversations with our children that are not all about superficial things. Our sons and our daughters need us to speak on deeper principles, have a deeper conversation that touches on the heart. What this does is, when we have these deeper conversations, is it teaches our children to think in a more deep way, to keep them from maybe approaching life in a general way and help them think more about the foundational principles that might be, causing certain things to happen. And so when we're looking at Proverbs, he's not talking about how to fish. He's not talking about, how to plant a garden. He's talking about how his son can see success and can have long days. So I want to give you a couple of these principles that, as a dad, I'm trying to work on, and I know the Lord will help me, but I hope it's something that you can maybe take and even start practicing today, all right? So let's look at a couple of these. The first one is found in Proverbs chapter number 1 and verse number 7. Proverbs 1, verse number 7. You found it? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. So the first thing that this writer, Solomon, we believe, wrote to his son is, listen, you have got to have the fear of the Lord because it is foundational for your mental and spiritual growth. You must fear God. Now, when we think of fear, what do we think of? We think of, if we're afraid of somebody, we avoid them, right? Or we are scared of them, or we're intimidated in a cowering way of them. And that's not the way fear is represented in the Bible, certainly not the way fear is represented as it relates to God. God tells us that we can approach him, that he is a loving God, that he is a personal God, that he cares for us very deeply. He knows us individually and knows how many hairs are on our head. So when we talk about the fear of God, what does that mean? Well, fear in the Bible, the fear of God in the Bible means reverence or respect. It's a positive thing. It's understanding who God is and revering him for who he is. And so maybe the first thing that we need to do as a dad, as a father with our sons, with our daughters, is teach them how to fear God. One of the ways that we do this is by teaching them about God's character, by teaching them that God is holy and just, and that he punishes sin. He punishes those that do not fear him. Maybe it's illustrating to our children about God's omniscience, his omnipresence, that he's immutable, that he doesn't change, that he is a just God, but he is a merciful God, that he's a kind God, that he's a loving God, that he is a God that is orchestrating all the events of this world so that things come out on the other end for our good and for his glory. It's teaching our children who God is. Now, many children have created a view of God based off of the father figure that they have. Now, when we talk about how difficult it is to take on the responsibility of being a dad, I think it's a pretty serious thing to know that our children's view of God sometimes is pressed on them by their view of their own father. And so fathers, if we're going to teach our children the fear of God, then we have to live out a life that is honoring and glorifying to God, that is illustrating our respect and our reverence to God. We're teaching our children who God is, not who people think that he is. I came across a Facebook post recently where a man made a post about Pride Month and God's view of Pride Month, Christ's view of Pride Month. And one man said, I like to think of Jesus as being the kind of God that just loves and doesn't judge, and he just cares, and he's really involved in helping people just be who they are. Now, that's somebody who, when they say, I like to think of God as, they have created their own God in their mind. And really, if I don't know if he was a Christian or not, but if that's a Christian, it's somebody who doesn't know who God is in Scripture. They haven't seen God represented in the Bible at all. They don't know that God is just, that he is a merciful God, but that he does judge sin, and he does have commands that we are to follow. And so even when we're fathers living out what it means to be a father, it's really important that you and I demonstrate in our life God's characteristics. That doesn't mean you have to be omniscient, although you can be if you're tracking your kids on the phone. Like, I know you went here, or I know you went to this website. But it does mean that the attributes of Christ should be evident in your heart and in your life. Very well represented throughout the New Testament. So the fear of God, we have to teach our kids God's character and who he is. When we fear God, we trust him. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, one of my favorite passages, says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. So dads, do you want your sons, your daughters to be kept from evil? Do you want them to honor God? Do you want them to have long life and see good days? Help them to learn the fear of God and the wisdom that comes out of that. Teach them what it means to be humble. Teach them what it means to be satisfied, to be confident, to be prayerful. Teach them about the fear of God. I think it's the foundational lesson that all of us can teach our kids. Who God is and how he represents himself in Scripture. Number one, teach your children the fear of God. Number two, teach them to guard their mind. Now, Proverbs chapter number 3 is all about the mind and how you think about life, and how the way you think about life will lead you in the direction that either you go or the Lord wants you to go. Very easily illustrated in verses 5 and 6. And so the second thing I want you to see in chapter number 3 is how we have to teach our children how to guard their minds. Look at chapter 4. It's illustrated best, I think, in chapter 4, verse 23. The Bible says, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Keep your heart with all diligence. That means it's going to take work to guard your heart, because everything springs out of what you feel and what you think. Every sin you commit is normally a sin in the mind before it's a sin in the heart, or sin in the mind before it is an activity that is actually taken place. And so you and I have to guard our hearts, and we have to teach our kids how to guard their minds. Dads, you and I are responsible as fathers to help guard the minds of our children. We have to keep them from bad stuff. We have a duty to keep them from bad stuff. And we have a duty to steer them in the way of healthy things, helping them fill their minds with positive things, with biblical things, with things that are not falling apart or degraded the way we see in our society. Your mind and my mind is a powerful thing, and it ultimately impacts the trajectory of our life. And the best thing that you can do as a dad is teach your kids to fear God, but also teach them the discipline of guarding their minds, because out of it come the issues of life. Proverbs 2 verse 10 says, when wisdom, let me look at it here, Proverbs chapter 2 verse 10 says, when wisdom entereth into thine heart, and knowledge is pleasant unto thy soul, then discretion shall preserve thee, and understanding shall keep thee. When wisdom enters into your mind and knowledge is pleasant in your soul, when it's enjoyable to learn and to grow and to develop wisdom and to learn how to guard your heart, that is when discretion will preserve you. That's when understanding will protect you. I love that passage. In Proverbs chapter 4, verse 14, the Bible illustrates that we are to guard our path and not go in the way of evil men. There's a book called Every Man's Battle. It's a book that is around helping men guard their hearts. I don't have to tell you this, but our society is very sexualized. You can't watch just normal cartoons about M&Ms without having some kind of sexual illustration or some kind of innuendo around sex. It's all over the place. It's on billboards, it's on TV, it's wherever you go. We live in New Braunfels, and it's really hard to go anywhere without seeing people that are, barely clothed. And one of the ways in which a father can teach their son is how to guard their mind against the things that they see. The Bible illustrates throughout Proverbs how important it is that the son not fall for wicked women or wicked ways, not to go after, Proverbs chapter 1, not to go after or with their companions and their friends to do wicked and evil things. And back to Every Man's Battle, the book is all about helping to shatter the misconception that men can't control themselves. It's a book that helps men deal with their mind in an over-sexualized culture. I would encourage you, if you haven't read the book, Every Man's Battle, to take a look at it. Because ultimately, you cannot blame a woman for your fallenness. You can't blame somebody else for your sin. It's not somebody else's fault the way they dressed. It's your fault for dwelling on it. It's your fault for looking the second time. It's your fault for thinking about it and going back and thinking about it. And so men, one of the greatest things we can teach our sons in an over-sexualized culture is how to guard their mind, how to protect what they think. Not just in a negative way, but in a positive way. To guard their mind and to fill their mind with things that are wise, that are knowledgeable, that teach them how to be preserved or how to keep their feet on the right path so that they don't fall against evil, wicked things. All right, so number one, what's the first thing that a father can do to teach their child to maybe excel in life and to see good days? Number one, teach them how to fear God. When they have a reverence for God, they understand God's character, and they see it represented in your life, it will help them see God for who He is, and that will help them in the future. The Bible says that's the beginning of wisdom. Number two, teach your child the discipline of guarding their mind. There are so many different things out there, and what we have to do as dads is protect our children. Lock down their phones. It's your responsibility to lock down their phone. Your child is not a separate, independent entity. You don't have to sit on the couch and say, man, I wish I could control them, but they won't listen to me. Now, that child's in your home. They're your dependent. They're using your internet. They're on your phone. It's your responsibility to do the right thing and to make sure that you're guarding your children so that you're helping guard their minds. And help them understand how to fill their life and fill their minds with positive things that will lead them to a long life and success in their life. Number three, and the last thing I'll show you is teach them how to obey their parents. Look at Proverbs 4 and verse number 10. Hear, O my son, and receive my sayings, and the years of thy life shall be many. He's saying to his son, look, if you want to live a long life, listen and apply what I'm telling you. Do what I say. The problem with many children today is disobedience. And disobedience creates chaos, and it leads to disorder in the family. And fathers, dads, you're not disempowered to take control of your family. This is your responsibility to do this. Whether you like the responsibility or not, it's still your responsibility. And one of the most important things you can teach your child is how to obey authority. Now, I don't have to give you any illustrations, but I can tell you that you can look out into society today and see how people have no reverence for any kind of authority figures. And people can do and say things about authority figures that 10 or 15 years ago wasn't even done. There was some amount of decorum that normally was part of society and the way we respected elders and parents. But now today we see horrible things happening to elderly people by young people who have no respect for authority. And we can teach our kids how to obey. Now, obedience is not blind compliance. As a father, it's not your responsibility to learn how to put your thumb on their life and to cage them up in their room and force them to do exactly what you say. Because ultimately, you can get your child to do things physically and not have their heart actually want to be in it. And you know this, it just breeds rebellion. You can command your child to do something, but if their heart is not in it, if their heart is not following along, then they're disobeying in their heart. Now, what is more important? Now, I know there are times where this might not be the case, but what is more important to you as a dad in working with your son? Do you want your son to just do as I say, or do you want them to hear why you think it's important to do it this way and do it not out of compulsion, but out of love, out of respect, out of a desire to do the right thing? I think all of us dads, that's what we want. We're not looking for compulsion. We're not looking for to cage our children and just make sure they do everything I say. We want their hearts to be with us. And Proverbs 4 illustrates that. Hear, O my son, and receive my sayings. When he says hear and receive, he's not saying do what I tell you to do. He's saying listen to what I'm saying and obey from the heart. We want to teach our children how to obey and not to be in rebellion. Look at Proverbs chapter 3, verse 11. Proverbs 3, verse 11. My son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. Here the writer is telling his son, look, there are going to be times where you're going to be chastened of God, where you're going to be, where you're going to do the wrong thing, and then you'll reap the wrongdoings of what you did. And it's important that when you are chastened, that you are not weary in correction. You're to understand that the Lord loves you and he's correcting you the way a father would correct his son. Do you see the illustration, what he's saying here? He kicks it off by saying, listen, don't fear the chastening of the Lord because he loves you. He loves you the way I chasten you and love you. And dads, probably the easiest way for us to get in the flesh is when we chasten our children out of our flesh. When we're up to here and we're angry and we lash out. We're up to here and we scold our children in a way that's demeaning to them, that hurts them, and then we feel better about it and your child feels horrible about it. I know I've done that, and probably you have as well. That's not the way the chastening of the Lord works. The chastening of the Lord is not to wound or destroy. It's to set right and to restore a relationship. It's to bring them closer to you. And we don't want to break their legs. We want them to see the right way that they're supposed to go, and we want them to love us and to follow us and to see that we have love for them. So as dads, there are going to be times where you're going to have to chastise your son or chastise your daughter. Understand that you're simply reflecting the attribute of God and his character, and you're demonstrating to your child who God is. God is a God of justice. He's a God that is against sin, but he is a God that loves, that brings comfort, that gives mercy, that shows grace, and that demonstrates forgiveness. Despise not the chastening of the Lord. Ephesians 6:1, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. So I know we have children listening as well. We got 34 families watching, and I know there's kids sitting on a couch here somewhere. You're not the judge of whether or not your dad is correcting you in the right way. Okay, you don't get to say, hey, I'll use my son as an illustration. Davey, I love you, but I'll use you as an illustration. You don't say, hey, Davey, I've told you to mow the lawn 3 times, and if you don't mow the lawn right now, I'm going to bury you in one of those big cracks in my backyard. That might not be the best thing to tell your child. It might not be the best thing to say to your son. But you as a child or as a son don't get to say, well, Dad, I really don't appreciate you saying you're going to bury me in a crack in the backyard. And I think you should seriously reconsider your thoughts on this. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go play the computer upstairs. So as a child, it's your responsibility to obey and to submit, even when the authority figure might be coming at it from the wrong way. And of course, I'm not talking about abuse. I'm not talking about you being told to do something that goes against Scripture, that goes against the Bible. But what I am saying is that you're not the judge, that your obedience is not determined by the attitude of the person telling you to obey. The police officer who has a bad attitude still requires your obedience. The person, your boss, who might come in late still requires your obedience for you not being late. Just because they do wrong doesn't mean you have an excuse to do wrong. You're obeying, the Bible says, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. You're obeying your parents because God has put them in your life, and you're to obey them for the Lord. This is the way that you honor God, by obeying your parents. The worst thing that can happen as a dad is for their child, particularly their son, as we're looking at fathers and sons here this morning, to have a rebellious heart. And dads, I feel for you if you have a child that is wayward, that is pushing against what you believe, that's pushing against the way that you've instructed them. But as a dad, it's important to pray for opportunities to confront them and to help break that will. It's pray for those opportunities to confront the rebellion. If the child's in your home, you have to confront it. It's your home. Confront the rebellion and deal with it and move on. You have a task, Dad, to teach your children to fear God, to guard their minds, and to obey their parents. So it's a pretty big duty, the responsibility that you and I have. It's something that can't be shirked in the Christian home. And while you might be getting pressures, Dad, from society, from your extended family, to just be the kind of dad that is just okay with everything, and wife has to do everything. She has to take care of disciplining the children. She's the one that has to step in the gap. Do the hard thing as a father. Step into the gap, step up, and be the leader of your home. Lead your home in the way that it should go, particularly as a father. Lead your sons and your daughters in a way that will lead them to where Proverbs takes them, to a long life and success in their life, a life that ultimately is found in the wisdom that is found in the fear of the Lord, in this discipline of guarding their mind and learning how to respect and obey authority. One last one that I just have you consider is that a father should teach their children not to hang around foolish people, to make sure that their companions, their friends, are wise companions, because your child's friends will demonstrates very clearly where their heart is at. If your child hangs out with rebellious kids, there's a really good chance that it's not your innocent baby around bad kids. It's your innocent baby is just as rebellious as the ones that they're attracted to, right? So I know that's the thought. Like, oh no, they're going to corrupt my kids. No, maybe your kid is going to corrupt their kids. All right, we have to take kind of ownership in this as well, and make sure that you help your children find good friends and maintain friends that will do the right thing and lead them in the right way. Dads, I'm praying for you. It's not easy. There's a lot of upstream things that you're having to go with, but please understand that you can be confident in God, in knowing that He has called you to be a father, He has put you in this position, and He will enable you to perform the things that He has called you to do. Proverbs illustrates that the conversations that you and I should have with our children, you can have the ones about fishing and about how to hit a ball and how to mow the grass and how to cook and how to clean. Those are all really good things. But look for those opportunities to have really deep conversations so that you can instill within your child's heart a love for God, a desire to follow after Him. That will last way further and bear way more fruit than any superficial conversation. I'm praying for you, dads, on this Father's Day. And I pray that you'll have a good Father's Day, and we'll see you either Wednesday or next Sunday. If you have any prayer requests, please let me know. You can text me at 210-718-7194. But we're going to close in prayer, and then we'll turn off the live stream. Dear Lord, I thank you even in this weird day, Lord, that we're still able to gather online and be an encouragement to each other and hear your word. Pray, Lord, for our fathers on this Father's Day, that you'll give them the courage they need to make the decisions they need to make. I pray that you'll give them wisdom and discernment in leading their family. I pray that they'll personally seek your face. I pray that you'll give them the gumption that they need to confront perhaps sin in their family, and I pray that you'll help them to lead their sons and their daughters in the way that they should go. For it's in your name I pray. Amen. All right, have a good week. We'll see you next time.
Life is always fair. I really enjoy repeating myself over and over again. I just love when the kids talk back to me. I don't care if you get a job this summer. I don't care if you get detention. I can't open this jar. See if Mom can open it. Just take your time in there, okay? No means maybe. Hey, why don't you bring that ball inside and play with it? Hey, don't put that back where you found it. Just leave it on the floor. Ew, bacon.
If you put a dent in the car, it's really no big deal.
It's 10 a.m. Go back to bed. Look, whatever your friends are doing, just do the exact same thing. I got more than enough sleep last night. If your friends are okay with it, then I'm okay with it.
Stop signs are just a suggestion.
You don't need a chaperone.
You don't need a seatbelt.
You don't need a savings account. You should buy the jeans with the holes in them. Hey, we're all gonna go to church, but you can just sleep in, okay? Could we please just hang out in here for another 10 minutes?
Hey, can we get some more bickering back there?
All right, bills.
Yay, traffic.
Woohoo, taxes. Yes. Laundry. Hey, can you kids come in here and jump on my bed? Quick, go tell Mom what happened right away. You don't need to finish your dinner. Hey, look at your phone when I'm talking to you. I wish I had a smaller TV. We got you that phone for a reason. Texting boys. All right, everyone, listen up. Mom and I are going out of town this weekend, so please, mess up the whole house while we're gone. Please throw a few parties while we're gone. Please forget about the dog entirely while we're gone. Hey, when you're finished pouring that, can you just leave it out on the counter all day? Thanks. Hey, what are you doing?
I'm gonna bungee jump out of this tree.
That's a really good idea.